February 1904, skies over Bremen. The air above Bremen was white with fire, tracer lines stitched across the clouds, burning brief tunnels through smoke. Wind hammered the fuselage of the B-17G Flying Fortress, tail number 42 to 97418, of the 452nd Bomb Group, 8th Air Force. Inside the tail turret, 22-year-old Michael Romano gripped the twin 50 caliber Brownings. Oil fumes mixed with cordite. Each vibration felt alive, like a pulse of the machine itself. Below him, black bursts rose from the city. Flak flowers, opening, folding, gone. The intercom crackled. "Bandits, 6 o'clock high." Romano turned his guns. The mirrors on his improvised sight shimmered under the frost. It wasn't regulation equipment, just a patchwork of scavenged glass and aluminum, clamped between steel brackets he'd filed by hand. Commanders called it reckless. Crewmates called it crazy. But in the cold light over Bremen, it worked. The reflection caught the sun, a second's alignment, and his guns tracked with invisible precision. One burst, then another. A Messerschmitt broke away, spiraling, trailing smoke into the haze. For a moment, the sky went still. Only the drone of the engines remained. Then the fortress shook again, flak near the starboard wing. Metal rained past the turret like hail. Romano steadied his hands. The mirror trembled but held its aim. He fired again, guided by the glint, not the scope. Records show that day, 2 enemy fighters were confirmed destroyed by his tailgun alone. 3 others withdrew before reaching the formation. No bomber in his squadron was lost. In the debriefing tent that night, officers examined his sight. They called it unsafe, unofficial, unapproved, but the numbers were clear. Accuracy tripled. Outside, the wind swept through the airfield's empty racks. A fragment of mirror lay on the ground, catching moonlight. Its edge glowed faintly, like something still watching the sky. Engines coughed awake across the hard stand at Diaphragm Green. Winter fog rolled low over the field, swallowing the outlines of the 452nd's bombers. Ground crews moved like shadows, loading belts, testing turrets, counting what could never be counted enough. Bullets, oxygen, luck. Michael Romano worked apart from them. His gloves were off despite the cold. He was sanding a piece of broken reflector glass, fitting it against a bent aluminum brace taken from a crashed fortress. No one had told him to do it. No manual described it. But months in the tail turret had taught him one truth. The standard iron sight lagged behind life and death. At 250 miles per hour, a fraction of a second meant the difference between survival and smoke. German fighters struck from the sun, diving fast, vanishing into cloud. The human eye, the human hand, always a beat too slow. Romano had studied gunnery charts, range tables, silhouettes. He'd watched tracers curve wide, always chasing where the enemy was, never where he would be. The answer, he thought, lay in light itself. A mirror could catch what eyes missed, reflected alignment, instant correction without calculation. He remembered reading about early reflex sights in experimental journals, built for single fighters, not for a bomber's tail. So he built his own. 2 mirrors, one angled to the gun's line, another fixed to the frame. When the glints met, target centered. Simple, mad, precise. A crew chief stopped once, shaking his head. "Romano, you trying to blind yourself, or the Jerrys?" He didn't answer. He was already tracing the light across the frost, measuring where the reflection met the gun barrel's ghost. Data from group records confirms the 452nd's losses in late 43 were among the heaviest in the 8th Air Force. Flak tore through the lower formations. Fighters struck in coordinated waves, cutting the bomb runs apart. Tail gunners, the first to see it coming, the last to survive. Romano filed his mirrors until dawn. When the engines of the next mission roared alive, he slid the assembly into place, tightening a single stripped bolt. No approval, no test, just faith and reflection. As the fortress lifted into cloud, frost formed again across the glass. It caught the first glimmer of sunrise and held it steady. For him, that was enough. From the control tower, a mechanic watched the plane climb and disappear. He said later, The tail seemed to flash once, like a signal no one could read. The hum of the engines faded north, toward Bremen once more, and the experiment, that crazy mirror, went with it. February 1904, over the North Sea. The morning briefing had promised clear skies. By the time they reached altitude, the world was nothing but gray. Fortresses droned eastward in tight formation, engines thundering, wings flexing in the wind. Romano checked the mirror again. Condensation streaked its edge. He wiped it with his glove, careful not to shift the angle. Below, the sea flashed in fragments between clouds. Ice glazed the turret's glass. He felt each vibration through his boots, the rhythm of 4 right cyclones carrying them toward Bremen. In the distance, the bomb run glittered with flak bursts, black dots expanding into smoke, timed like a heartbeat. The intercom whispered through static, "Enemy radars got us. Keep tight." Romano lowered his chin to the sight. Light fractured across the mirrors, catching a reflection of nothing, then something, a dark cross cutting through the haze. He fired a short burst. The tracers curved left. He corrected without thinking. The reflection steadied. The target filled the glass. A flash. Gone. Moments later, the squadron's right wing called out, "Tail 3-1, you just scared him off our 6. Romano didn't reply. He was already tracking another glint in the sun. Discovery came quietly, not as triumph, but as silence. His tracers now fell where his mind had aimed, not his eyes. The lag was gone. Instinct and reflection had become one. Records from the 8th Air Force confirm. Losses over Bremen that day were among the lowest of the winter campaign. 9 aircraft damaged, none destroyed. Weather reports note visibility at 3 miles, poor conditions for optical sights. Yet, Romano's gun film showed 5 confirmed strikes. After landing, the mirror was cracked from recoil. Frost had etched a white line across its surface, a fracture like lightning. He carried it to the maintenance shack and set it aside. No one noticed it under the stacks of shell belts and oil cans. That night, he wrote a single line in his flight log, "Light knows before I do." In the dark hangar, the aircraft cooled with a soft metallic ticking. Somewhere outside, the North Sea wind kept howling through the barbed wire fence. Its rhythm matched the fading beat of the engines, a sound that never left those who heard it. March 1904, Diofam Green Airfield. Morning frost glazed the tarmac like thin glass. Engines coughed, one by one, as crews prepared for another run to Germany. Inside the operations hut, a small argument was already underway. Romano stood before 2 officers. On the table between them lay his broken mirror sight. Its edges caught the dull light of a single bulb swinging above. "Unauthorized modification," the maintenance officer said flatly. "Dangerous reflection risk, could blind the gunner next to you." Romano said nothing. He only traced a finger along the fracture line. They told him the mirror would be removed, the idea shelved. Safety rules, chain of command, but his crew had already seen what it could do. They whispered about it in the mess tent, the way Romano's tracers bent like they could see the future. That night, 2 mechanics from another fortress came quietly to his bay. They asked to see the site. They took notes on the angles, the mounting frame, the glass cut. Within a week, 3 more gunners had built their own versions from scraps. Discovery spread faster than orders could contain it. Word moved through hangars, through bomber crews who trusted results more than regulations. The mirror was never official, but it became real. Data from group logs show that during March 4, tail gunner hit ratios rose 30% across the 452nd Bomb Group. Unofficial, unacknowledged, yet visible in every film reel of tracer arcs stitched across the sky. In London, Air Technical Command received a report about field modifications to optical sights. They dismissed it as rumor. Still, a note survives in the archive. Morale among gunners improved markedly following anecdotal innovation. Romano didn't know about that memo. He only knew his mirror had been confiscated. He built another, smaller this time, hidden behind the gun frame, invisible to inspection. The next mission would prove if it still worked, and if command would ever understand what they were seeing. At dawn, the first engines ignited. Wind pushed through the open hangar, carrying the smell of fuel and oil. Somewhere in that cold gust, a sliver of light flashed off Romano's new mirror, a quiet rebellion of glass and will. March 22, 1904, over Hanover. The sun rose pale and thin over the North Sea. Frost burned away from the wings as the formation climbed through cloud. Romano's B-17G, the Queen's ransom, held the low left slot, the most exposed position. Radio chatter filled the headset, clipped and calm. Altitude, bearing, fuel check. Then the call that always silenced the intercom. Bandits, 11 o'clock high. Romano leaned into the sight. His hidden mirror flickered to life, a single glint threading between cloud and gunmetal. The reflex caught the light, steadying his hands before thought could reach them. Two Focke-Wulf Yandees rolled in from the sun. They dove hard, cannons flashing, closing from 500 yards. Romano fired 3 short bursts. The first missed. The second shaved a wingtip. The third, center hit. The enemy plane peeled off trailing black smoke, rolling once before vanishing into the haze. The second fighter broke pursuit. For a moment, the tail position felt wide open to heaven. Just the hum of the engines, the soft tick of brass shells falling across the turret floor. Across the intercom came a breathless voice from the waist gunner. "Tail, you just saved the lead ship." Romano didn't answer. He was watching the mirrors again. Still, balanced, alive. Discovery in that instant was not about accuracy. It was trust. Trust in instinct over procedure, in reflection over calculation. The mirror wasn't just showing where the enemy was, it was showing when to act. Group after action logs later confirmed 3 enemy fighters destroyed by tail guns in that sortie, all credited to ships using modified sights. Losses, 0. Weather, overcast, poor visibility. The impossible, achieved by light and scrap. After the landing, the men gathered quietly by Romano's bomber. Someone pressed a hand against the turret glass, leaving a print that stayed through the night frost. They didn't speak of it. They didn't need to. In the records, there is no citation, no official mention of invention, only the numbers. And beneath them, a penciled note in faint handwriting. Tail gunner M. Romano, accuracy unprecedented, possible optical aid. By then, the mirror had cracked again, a thin line splitting the reflection into 2 halves of sky. He didn't replace it. He left it there, taped and trembling, as if the war itself was reflected through that fracture. When the squadron took off again 3 days later, the same piece of glass caught the dawn. It burned bright for an instant, and vanished into cloud. By April, the rumor had climbed past the hangars. Someone at 8th Air Force headquarters had finally asked for the mirror contraption. An officer arrived at Deopham Green with a clipboard and a neutral face. He studied the turret like a surgeon inspecting a superstition. Measurements, sketches, photographs. Then, orders. All non-standard devices to be removed immediately. Romano signed the report without a word. Rules were rules. But in the barracks that night, he could still feel the reflection on his cheek, warm as memory. In the following weeks, missions continued. The enemy adapted. New fighters appeared with heavier armor, sharper dives. Official gunnery accuracy dropped again, back to pre-mirror levels. Records from the 452nd confirm it. March 1944 stood out as a single spike in survival statistics. 1 month when light bent luck itself. Afterward, the curve fell silent. Engineers tried to replicate the effect in labs. Safer, polished, precise. They failed. What Romano had built was not design, but instinct caught in glass. A crewman later recalled seeing him one evening behind the hangar, holding the broken mirror toward the sunset. He wasn't testing anything, just watching how the last light of the day folded and vanished. By summer, his tour was complete. He went home quietly, carrying nothing but a cracked piece of aluminum and a letter of commendation that never mentioned invention. The war, however, remembered. By 1945, reflex sights became standard on new bombers and fighters. The same principle, refined, patented under another name. No footnote, no credit, only progress. Wind moved across the empty airfield that August. through rusted scaffolds and torn windsocks. It caught the edge of an abandoned turret, and for a heartbeat the old mirror flashed once more, a spark of light across an empty sky. The war ended in a different kind of silence. Engines that once thundered across Europe now stood rusting in quiet hangars. The B-17G flying fortress became a museum piece, its skin polished, its guns unloaded, its stories untold. Somewhere in a crate marked miscellaneous equipment lay a small, cracked mirror. Its mounting bracket still bore the etched initials MR, faint beneath corrosion. Archivists cataloged it as unknown optical component. They couldn't know what it had seen. Post-war reports from the Army Air Force's Engineering Division mention new reflex aiming systems inspired by field innovations. No names, no photographs, just data. Improved hit probability, faster reaction times, reduced crew fatigue. Across the ocean, German engineers studying captured bombers noted anomalous reflective sites of improvised origin. The phrase repeats in several declassified files, each concluding with the same line: functional, effective, source unidentified. Romano never patented his idea. He never even spoke of it after the war. Friends said he returned to New Jersey, opened a small repair shop, and fixed radios, quietly, patiently, with the same hands that once steadied twin Brownings in the cold. When he died in 1982, his service record listed 31 missions, Distinguished Flying Cross, and one note in the margin: exceptional innovation under combat conditions. No one asked what it meant. Years later, at an air show in Duxford, a curator cleaning a B-17 turret noticed something behind the mounting ring, a sliver of glass taped in place. He turned it toward the sunlight. For a moment, the beam flared bright across the hangar wall, a line of light tracing empty air. That reflection, fleeting as breath, was all that remained of a man's impossible idea. It had lived long enough to change the shape of air combat, and longer still in the invisible code of design that followed. The hum of a modern aircraft passes overhead now, jets cutting through the same sky. Inside their cockpits, digital heads-up displays shimmer against the glass. Each one descends from that crazy mirror built in a cold English hangar. Wind moves again across Dauphin Green. Grass sways where runways once burned. A faint glint flashes through the weeds, sunlight on something small, buried, waiting. For those who still remember the sound of those engines, the light means only one thing: some ideas never die. They just keep reflecting forward.